let's get this started. This is a very exciting day, I think. Um, in general, just to kick off this subject, being in tech, being a woman in tech, at this day in time is super exciting because I think we talked a lot about it today in the bigger sessions as well, but so much is happening in tech at the moment, and the growth of tech is just insane, and the pace of it as well. Based on that, myself and Susanna, we will introduce ourselves fairly soon, want to guide you through a little bit of our take on how intelligent automation is changing, will be changing the way that we work. We will save questions for the end. Please have a lot of questions, and there's no silly questions, just keep them coming. This is what we're here for and why we're talking about this subject. So, who are we? My name is Cecilia Klinch. I work for Roboyo. I'm the Chief Business Officer, the Managing Director of Roboyo in the Nordics. Background-wise, I've done a little bit of everything. Development, I started in sales, went into development because that was way more fun, I realized. The tech part is when you actually build something instead of just selling it. Spot on, loved it. But the last, I would say, 8 years, I've worked mostly with processes, process optimization from a tech perspective, and that's also what I do a lot in Roboyo. And I have been so lucky enough now to have been working with my colleague Susanna for the last
5 years.
We just realized, that's insane. So yeah.
And Susanna Hellström-Gerrit is my name. I'm the director within Intelligent Automation Engineering. I have a background, I mean, Cecilia is normally referring herself as a process nerd within this, and then I'm coming in with insights of being the tech nerd in our duo here. I have a background within the Java development, working within system integration development, but then moved into the intelligent automation space about 6 years ago, which at that time actually was quite new. And we believe that we're creating lots of magic. I mean, both working a lot with technologies and emerging technologies, of course, but also working a lot with people. And we're doing that at our employer Roboyo, which is the world's largest intelligent automation company within implementation and advisory services. And I don't know, here in the crowd, we have lots of very talented women. How many of you would you consider yourself as process nerds?
Yay!
Yay, a few hands up. And how many would be the tech nerds then in this team? Yay, about the same amount. Nice.
What about the rest? Let's not ask that. So, no. All right. Let's move on into our topic. How intelligent automation will change the way we work. So, as I said in the beginning, the world has never changed faster. And it is a strategic imperative to stay on top. So for all our institutions, for all our businesses, this becomes increasingly important. Because at the moment, and of course that's why we're all here, we are in the midst of a digital revolution when it comes to tech. All companies, all organizations are also in the midst of their digital transformation journey. And what that means, really, because we throw around all these sayings often, digital transformation is really when company allows or strategically makes sure that technology really penetrates every aspect of their business in order to be better at meeting the market needs. So this is where we are today. But before we go in more into that topic, I kind of want to go back a little bit in history. Because we have actually been in this type of situation before, where technology affects and changes how we live and how we work. And that's the Industrial Revolution. I think most of you remember from school. I remember 19th century. I remember when the spinning machines that they created, produced in England, the spinning jennies. And what happened was at that time that spinning or creating cloth, I hope my English is okay here, was usually done in the home, usually by women, right? You could work from home, you could produce, you could spin, be a good spinner, and then sell it at the market. And then suddenly, this type of revolution came where the machines came in and they did it way, way, way faster. 10 times, 100 times the speed, the productivity, the revenue. And this changed, really, that market fundamentally. Not only, of course, that people made way, way more money, there was way more cloth out there, but also from a workforce perspective, just to bring this into context to why we're here. The workforce had to change quite drastically. Before, you could work from home, you could work at your own pace, you could take care of your children, etc. And now you were instead collected into large factories. You got colleagues, you started to unionize. This really affected how we work in a fundamental way. But not only that, if you look at what was needed from you in the workforce, when you sat at home, you could be an excellent seamstress or spinner, etc. But now, in this new era, what was really expected and wanted from you was to be able to handle the machines, to be able to have the experience to know how it could work more efficiently. So a completely different skill set.
And of course, we also got the same example from the main stage priorly, right? In the 1960s, how the same workforce transformation was ongoing and was happening.
Yeah, so this has happened before. So let's go back to today. Let's skip history lesson. This is all the history you're going to get from me. So don't be alarmed. But today we are facing the same issue in a slightly different way, though. There is a difference today because back then the growth of technology, it was linear. You know, here was the first machine, the spinning jenny. It took 6 months to a year, and then they improved it, and it got better, and it got more motorized, etc. It was a linear curve that you could kind of count on, right? What's happening now is that the tech growth that we see, it's exponential. And what this means is that we're actually not going to be able really to keep up because it is exponential and we are so used to the linear way things are working. What this means for businesses, for institutions and so on, and for us, is that the business as usual, that's not going to work anymore. What worked yesterday, based on the data that we have, it might not work today. It probably definitely won't work tomorrow. So this puts us all in a very different perspective of how to drive our business and make sure that we're profitable. But to change topic slightly, what type of tech do we then need? What is it that we need to keep up with? What's out there right now when it comes to what we call intelligent automation? And because the sun is shining, which is amazing, you might not really see all the acronyms that just popped up on the screen, but there is lots of them, okay? And it keeps popping up more because we need names on all the new stuff that is coming. And this is hectic. How do you keep up with this? Because what does this mean then? Intelligent automation and automation, it could be anything from basic automation, RPA, robotic process automation. You can take a standardized, manual, boring, repetitive task, and you can automate it. So you automate a small part of your process. Or it could be all the way towards the other side, where you actually use large language models or algorithms or almost, whatever it may be, conversational AI, etc., but where you use the technology to help you take decisions, or it even takes the decisions for you based on the data. So it could be all of this, right? This is a struggle. This is the challenge. Almost done, almost handing over. There are companies today, and they were mentioned today on the big stage as well, that already does this, that was born into this, that they are data-driven natives, and that's the Amazon, the Netflix, the Uber of our time. They fully embrace this. They understood from day one that if I don't know my clients, my consumers, I won't be profitable. So they went straight into the data-driven technology. For good and bad, they are profitable. But a question I'd like to pose is that all? Is the technology everything that you need? Is that going to be the answer? We talk a lot about technology. Is that going to be enough?
Yeah, and as you stated, and I want to go back a bit, because I mean, companies have understood that data is important in the digital transformation. But what's happening is that we're working a lot in silos. And I think that we got a perfect example from that as well at the main stage before, when we talked about the big power grid companies, right? They don't understand that there is a power outage until they get a customer calling them saying that we're out of electricity. We're working in silos, and what that means is that we're doing productivity increases, we're doing efficiencies within only our own domain. And we will end up, and most companies are actually here today. I don't know how many of you have seen this picture before, and I don't know how much you can see from the back. I hope you can. But I think that this is actually a perfect example also of how we're looking into things, into silos. And if we take, for example, the customer journey, of course, within the power grid company, the customer journey is one example that we got before. But let's take, for example, that in the front, we're the sales organization. What we see and the data that we have, we're looking at blindfoldedly at the tusk of the elephant, believing that it's the spit. Because that's what we have within our CRM systems, with the dialogues that we're having with the customer. And all that we worry about is, of course, getting the deal signed, getting the data into the CRM system. In the customer journey, what we do then is that we hand over to the production line, for example. What they want to do is, of course, make the best product there is from the specification that they got from sale. But they have their own system. They have their own data that they're working with. And in this example, what that means is that they're looking into the elephant's stomach, believing what they're saying is a wall. And in the customer journey, what they then do is that they're handing over to the finance department. They're saying, okay, we've done this product, it's great, it's working, let's invoice the customer. So the finance department have their own system. They have their own data. What they're doing blindfoldedly is holding the tail and believing that what they're having is a rope. Maybe you can think of your worst example of IT systems working in silos. What do you have at your company where you're having to do this?
Everybody has one.
Everybody has one.
Even I have one.
Yeah, I know. We have lots of processes, for example, where we manually introduce data from one system to another. Or it might be so that we know the information that we need in order to solve our issue is within one system where we don't have access. We need to go around in order to get the data and be able to execute the process that we're working with. And if this is how we see it today, what does that mean? That the technologies and the systems are in silos, not supporting our processes. We can't get the real business value with how we're working today. And most importantly, we will not be able to utilize the people fully when we're looking at things this way. So data and end-to-end process understanding is the foundation for business value. And it's really when the process gets the spotlights that the technology can become the enabler within this journey. And what we want to achieve is, of course, that we want to move away from cost-driven organizations. We want to move away from just quick fixes, technology silos, and process limitations. And with intelligent automation, can enable us and have new technologies push, change the way that we adapt and think about software. We want to move to an organization that is more value-driven, that is thinking about transformation instead of just being quick fixes, where we're having a tech ecosystem instead of having tech silos. And of course, where we're seeing innovation and innovation experience as a thing instead of process limitations. And Intelligent automation for us is, of course, part of this digital transformation journey. And it is a very crucial part in some ways. But organizations also need to be designed for the future work.
And I think this is the real takeaway here. And to kind of emphasize this, if intelligent automation drives the digital transformation, how does it affect the organization and the way we work? So what we see here in this lovely little pyramid is our elephant, in a sense. It's the current state of our organization. At the base, we have transaction processing. What this means is it's the everyday work, the everyday tasks that we do. They could be manual, they could be repetitive, but it's the tasks drives this business forward. On top of that, I don't know if you can see, reporting and compliance. And you picture the elephant, and if there is somebody, hopefully, driving or pushing that elephant forward, they of course need to know what's happening in the different departments, what's the tusk doing, what's the tail doing, and so on, and are we doing the right thing? This is all collected and then pushed upwards for insight and action. Today's organizations, for obvious reasons, based on what's happening in the world, have a bit of a cost focus, as we discussed in the last slide. So this is all used now to just make sure we're on the right path, we're profitable, right? This is a very small top of the pyramid. You don't get much focus on other things than to push the business forward. If you add automation to this, if we start with what we sometimes call just the basic automation, such as RPA, robotic process automation, or perhaps a simple chatbot that could make it easier for clients to understand what's happening or how to reach you, or internally perhaps, you can actually dig away a little bit out of the chunk, the basis of this pyramid. What happens then is we say that you reach an optimized state. You have less of the manual tasks such as moving numbers from a system to another, repetitive administrative things you can greatly decrease with this type of technology. No problem. You still have to do reporting and compliance, of course. Also, that can be simplified with the use of automation. Insight and action stays about the same. Because what happens here is that you're still working in the original way. It's still the elephant. It's still silos. It's still structures. But you have removed some of the time-consuming tasks. But what we want to do, and really what we want to emphasize, is that if you use intelligent automation, if you go a bit forward with more advanced technologies here, such as process mining, where you can dig deeper down into the end-to-end process based on your own data and understand how your process is actually run, or with NLP, natural language processing, where you can understand huge chunks of text, but you can also act on it and react on it. Conversational AI, move away from the traditional chatbot to really have an interactive interface for clients and internal. BPM or low code, what this could give you is really an application layer on top to really make sure, understand that the processes run the way they should be run, to get the transparency and the speed and get rid of all those obstacles. Machine learning, of course, and AI, but let's call it machine learning now, where you can actually use this data and you can use it for good, in the sense that you can it can help you take the right decisions. If we do this, where do we end up? This is the state where we want to be. We want to turn this pyramid upside down. We want to diminish or reduce the transactional processing, the boring manual tasks, as much as possible. Of course, reporting and compliance is still important. We need to know where we're going. But what this type of technology would allow organizations to do is really to think end to end. It allows you to have more of a holistic view of your company, reduces or diminishes or takes away the silos that I think that we're all quite used to work in. And more importantly, what we mentioned in the beginning, oh my goodness, there's so much happening in the world and it's an exponential growth in technology and so on and so forth. Well, then you need to be very, very agile. You need to be incredibly fast-paced as a business if you are to follow your market. So insight and action is going to be key for all companies to stay on top. And if this is how it can enable an organization to change, more importantly, and to our question, how does this affect the way we work? Well, if before the workforce was, whether it's finance or HR or production lines, they were working with the everyday, perhaps administrative tasks and so on. What happens now when insight and action becomes key is that the workforce is moving up the value chain and other type of skill sets will be needed. And this is really the big revelation here, because this is a transformation of work. So not only a digital transformation, but at the same time, there has to be a workforce transformation as well.
And only by doing this is when we will change the way we work. We will move away from silo structures to cross-functional understanding with the business value in focus. If we look at the customer success journey again, I mean, we can utilize each and every team. We can make sure that we get invaluable insights. We can get an understanding of the end-to-end process. We can, of course, and what we all want to achieve, work smarter and not only harder with the things that we do. And Cecilia asked in the beginning, I mean, is tech really the answer to this? Is this all that we need? The issue is, the thing is that if it's used in a value-driven way with people and humans at the center, then yes. But we want to emphasize that value-driven technology is all about the humans. It's what we do that matters. And in that sense, what we want to make sure is that we democratize the understanding of processes and how the automations can be used to improve them. What we also wanted to, of course, give to you after this session is something that you can think about. And how do you do this when you go back home? I mean, tomorrow, when you're back at work, how do you get started in order to move away from, of course, these silos and then going into a cross-functional understanding? We're going to bring you 6 actions that you tomorrow already can get started with. And of course, that is, first of all, set the strategy. And not only having an automation strategy, but of course also a workforce transformation strategy. What shall we do with all of these people that we want to move up the value chain? How do we make sure that we work with technologies in the correct way? And how do we make sure that we're moving away from silo structures into a cross-functional understanding? So set your strategy and do it as early as you can so that that can guide you throughout your journey.
As part of this as well, and this goes back to what you were saying, Susanna, earlier on, about democratization, democratizing stuff. Educate employees and users, because if the organization as such does not understand what intelligent automation can do for their everyday work life, they will not be the drivers in this. And as we said, this is about the people. It's not about the technology. So unless there is a change journey involved in this, where people understand, they are not afraid, and they see the benefits, it's going to be very hard to change this pyramid around. So this is actually key. Everybody needs to be informed and on the journey.
But it's also important that you have your talents, your ambassadors with you along this journey. So identify them and think a bit outside the regular IT people sitting, working with the technologies today. Think outside the box there. It doesn't matter which role you are in. You will be needed in the automation journey at some point in time. So identify your talents and work with them along the way.
My favorite. Think big, but take one step at a time. What does this mean? Of course, we talk about pyramids and we turn them upside down and, oh, we're all going to be about insights and action. It can take a long time to get there, but to go back up, set your strategy. If this is not where you aim to be, then you will never, ever get there. If you don't understand that how your people, how they like it at work and how you can make them evolve, then you won't get there. So important to have that in mind, think big, but then one step at a time. Start small. You can't do everything at once. You can't swallow the dragon from start. You need a sharp knife.
And cut it in halves, right? In pieces.
I have to work on my analogies. I think
they're good. But, and one thing, of course, that we try to emphasize also during the presentation, it's not only about tech and software, right? It's a journey. And during that journey, make sure that you measure and monitor and continuously improve the automation lifecycle. Because what we want to do is, of course, move fast within these new exponential technologies that are coming in. And in order for us to adapt to everything, we need to sometimes take a step back and see, are we going in the correct directions? Sometimes, of course, we're not going to be, but then we need to make sure that we understand that and that we take a step back and move along the correct path that we're looking into.
And I think that's an important point. Yeah, you can go. An important point as well, that we iterate. Right? We won't have all the answers to begin with. Part of this journey is to make mistakes, learn along the way, understanding what we did wrong, do it better next time. And to conclude, again, I don't know how many times we've mentioned the word journey, but it is a journey. And we are in such exciting times now. There is so much with new tech happening that is at our fingertips, you know? We have never been this technologically advanced, right? As we are right this minute. So be sure to enjoy the ride that you all have in front of you. It's going to be a ride, for sure. Yeah. Right.
So with that, we want to say thank you. And please follow, join us on LinkedIn. And please let us know your questions that you have after this presentation.
Yeah, if there are any questions, yeah.
So I think for a lot of people this can be a very overwhelming topic, right? There's so many things you could do, and I really like the way you kind of synthesize that down into the 6 steps. But I'm wondering in terms of kind of actual steps in terms of moving towards this, where would you look first? Sort of within an organization, within certain departments, obviously looking at that cross-functional approach, but there's so much there.
Where to start?
What's that baby step that kind of is maybe the best trigger forwards?
Can I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
We might not have the same opinion
here.
Yeah,
let's see.
There was actually one of the steps that we removed because we thought, it'd be a little bit too much. But because this is all intertwined, right? It has to happen in parallel. Tech is an important part of it. In most organizations today, I would say all, there's usually a central function that understands and breeds technology. Ideally, it embraces intelligent automation as a whole and not focused on one particular tech like RPA or whatever it may be. And having that central function that can collect the ideas from all across the organization, and that is also in line with the strategy that we spoke about earlier, where the organization as such, where the company needs to go, not only now, but in 2 to 3 years going forward. By connecting the technology to the strategy, that's usually a good place to start. Because that also allows you to find these ambassadors that we were talking about in the various departments, and to educate, to have a central forum, so to speak, or a COE, that educates the rest of the organization.
And of course, what you can do if you find those ambassadors, and maybe they are located within one department where you see that there is a big, I don't know, demand, or people are curious about this, they want to go ahead, start there, even though you're having your overall strategy in mind. I mean, because it's always important, I think, not to forget about that. Where is it that we're going, right? Because sometimes I think we get so focused that we should, remove the manual repetitive tasks. Let's start with finance, let's start with RPA. But we're not thinking about where is it actually? What do we want to do with this? So, I mean, if it's so that you have people who are really keen to go about, do that. And take that first process. Just, sometimes it's just start also, and then see where that goes.
And
Good
get it
question.
into the strategy and
Yeah.
get the C-level buy-in. I think you were first. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you have an example of a company where you did this full transformation all the way bottom up, and a little bit to successfully do that? What did you do?
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think that any company are there today. This is something that is also quite new. I mean, when I started 6 years ago, we were talking RPA, we were talking very small, narrow, taking away the process transactions, etc. So I would say that we have many companies that are on that path, but none of them have actually introduced all of these different technologies, and especially what organizations having difficulties is looking at the end-to-end perspective. We're still very much in silos and looking into that. But I think the ones who are on that path, they're actually, what they are doing is that they're setting their strategy, right? They're having, like you said in here, the C-level buy-in. They understand from all levels, why is this something that we want to do? And how do we work towards getting the end goal? So it's a journey, I think, for everyone, honestly, on this.
You don't want to point out the ones that haven't gotten the whole way. That's okay. You can talk to me later. So. No, sorry. I think, was it you?
I think my question relates a bit,
Mhm.
because I'm a bit curious about, because you use a terminology I've never heard,
Mm.
and I've been working for many years in like tech companies, and of course we talk data-driven and customer-centric and product organizations, etc. So I think, maybe we talk about the same things, but I just don't recognize your terminology. So where does it live? Like, where do you use this? Which kind of companies?
Everywhere, honestly. It's banking companies, it's industries, it's, I don't know. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be big companies. We also have quite small, actually, that we're working with. I don't know, the smallest, I think, was 3 employees in the beginning. So they were
That
very
was
small.
5 years ago.
That was 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, but
But yes,
But yes.
This type of if we talk about intelligent automation or digital transformation, etc., I would say that this is applicable everywhere. But will everybody make this type of journey? No, most likely not. Also, what we haven't discussed now is, of course, if you are to take that type of investment of this type of technologies as well, that's not something that you do lightly. You need to have experts, either consultants, maybe us, but or you need to invest in the knowledge gap within your organization. And the clients that we have now, or what we see are doing this, it's the large companies. But parts of this journey, everybody can do. And everybody, I think more importantly, it's being aware of that strategy of where you want to go and how the workforce and how your employees are connected to your digital strategy. I think that is key, no matter how big or small you are. I hope you agree.
some parts, I was going to say. But talk about that later.
I hope it answered your question somewhat.
I don't know who was first. Maybe you have.
Maybe at the back, I think.
I was actually going to ask a question that we just a little bit what we were talking about just now. So we talked about getting started and getting ambassadors and also getting leadership buy-in. So to talk about practical steps, it often requires an investment, right, to get started process optimization and to work like through automation. And that's why I had my question. It's like I work for B2B media tech company, and their data-driven customer experience is not really a known thing. So my question to you guys was, what are the proof points and the resources you would bring to leadership to actually persuade them to make that investment and that step forward into process automation?
The $1 million question. Thanks. If I start.
Yeah, go.
Yep. What we often see, I mean, what you're asking is what they are all asking. They're saying, okay, but why? Why should I do this? Why do I want this? And of course, it's a little bit ironic that we have to go out to companies and say, "Oh, you need to be agile, guys, because stuff is happening." But that's the case. That's the reality. And why is that the reality? Because we have a big cost focus, and that's how business work. So from our perspective or our experience so far, the only way to reach, not the only way, sometimes the only way to get this buy-in from C-level or above and get this written into the strategy proper is to prove it with a business case. Practically, if I take my process glasses on, what we often do is that we go out and we go through the processes of the company to see, using methodologies, of course, like Lean Six Sigma, but also understanding where can there be a use case for automation and for intelligent automation. And if so, how much would that save? Because end of the day, money often talks more so than what we try to emphasize now, people and strategy. So to create that type of business case, on a practical level, you need probably a bit of time to do that. It's an effort of a bunch of people. It will take you a month or two to really understand on a high level what type of processes you have in your company, how they actually run, and where there are improvement capabilities that can bring business value back. And that is what you present.
And I don't, even though I love the tech, and I often want to say, let's go just to implement and it's fun. But I do think that it's important also to have the cost. I mean, even though, of course, we want to move away from quick fixes and being cost-centric, it's always a prioritization, right? We want to prioritize what it is that gives the best value for us. And in that sense, the business cases are actually quite good. I mean, even though you're saying that, okay, we can save this amount of money, but that is also, we can save this amount of money due to the fact that we're actually optimizing the processes.
And also, it's super important. We talk a lot about money now because that's usually the language everybody understands, right? But there's other ways to measure this that are very important to point out. I had a client, still have, I think, I hope, but not after this, but where we looked at it in a different way. We looked at the workforce and we saw that they were working overtime. This was the finance department. They were constantly working overtime, of course, at that end of the month. We also saw from the data that this correlated with a lot of people being sick often and not feeling well, not being happy in the workplace. So those were the KPIs that we focused on. How do we diminish this time of the month where people are stressed and they can't pick up their kids in time and they get sick afterwards, How do we pinpoint that? Because that is also a KPI that C-level understands. So you can measure it in different ways, these business cases.
But I mean, we also work from the question from before, where do we do this? I mean, we also work a lot with municipalities, with public sector, hospitals. COVID is a very good example where we actually helped hospitals in also getting the public information about COVID numbers. Where is it so that the disease has spread? How do we make sure that people get vaccinated, etc.? So I mean, those things can also be, of course, the value that you receive from doing these types of automations. Because the systems that we have can't support that. That's the issue, right, in the beginning. There was another question, I think. Yeah.
That might be me.
Yeah.
A bit of a hand in the neck question, perhaps, but sometimes it can be a bit slow in the beginning, and we always have the promise of you will see the effects soon, in a while. But while being in the beginning, we often talk about cleaning up before we can start to automate.
Yeah.
To automate processes that are neat and in order. But is there any hope? How can we get to the step where we can use the processing? I mean, the robotics thingies, the intelligent thingies, to do the cleaning up in order to get the effects and insights. It's not from the other way around.
Yeah.
Do you foresee something like that?
And there are tools actually that partly does that, that can actually, with the help of data that we get from our systems, predict and say, okay, this is how the process looks like. I mean, you're saying from the documentation that it looks like this, but this is actually what you're doing, and this is actually what's happening within the systems. And especially, okay, but these are of course our happy path, but we're spending a lot of time on the things that are not our standards. So there are already now technologies that are helping us do that. Unfortunately, they're still quite costly.
I would say they are, of course, and also doing that type of, it takes time as well to dig into the data, getting the data points that you need to really fully map up your process. But once you do, these type of process mining tools, they have predictive analysis as well. They can actually dig in and see, all right, so you're doing it this way, and these guys are doing something completely different from what you think that they are. These are my suggestions going forward.
These are the parts that we can automate. These are the parts that we're going to have to work with, for example, process optimizations or others. So,
and then you can measure and see, did it work? Yes, it did, or no. No, it did not. They're still doing the same thing. But yeah, part of that is there. I just want to say that I also think that, I mean, we speak a lot about technology because we've done it for years and we love it. But don't forget about the methodology, and don't forget about, I mean, process optimization. Sorry, process glasses, but, you know, don't forget about the old techniques that have been around for ages. You know, the Lean, the Six Sigma, they are still valid. Because as you actually pointed out in a very good way, if the process is all over the shop, we're not going to do anything with tech, honestly. You have to start with the process.
we can, but you will get the same results.
Okay,
in the
fine,
end.
we can. But
So, yeah. You'll not optimize anything.
no,
That's
no,
the issue.
we'll do something
But
completely
really
different.
good questions. Thanks a lot. I know that there was one more. Yeah.
My question is like, nowadays when businesses are adopting AI, so as an AI consultant, what are the challenges in the market, like trying to link business with technical AI? What are the biggest challenges that comes as an AI consultant?
Oh, I would say it's also coming back to what we've said in the presentation. It's often about the people as well. Right now, especially as we are in the beginning of these types of projects, we need to educate a lot more, I think, of how can we use these different types of tools, how can we make sure that we use them in a good way, and how do we reap the benefit from them. But of course also data is a big issue, because having good AI modules requires lots of good data. And that's also something that we struggle with at many plaid making sure that, because it's not magic that's happening, right? We need to train the modules, etc. So getting the correct amount of data and how to say it, cleaned data as well.
I noticed you haven't spoken at all about support and maintenance
I know.
today, Susanna. This
I
is
love support and
usually
maintenance.
every time we talk about technology, because that's an important part as well.
Yeah. No, you're getting that one in.
Yeah,
I know what
but
it is.
I believe it is. No matter what technology we're using, even if it's the nearest, the next level tech, if we don't take care of it, if we don't understand the maintenance and the support of it, it's just going to take our money away, honestly. So it's important to think a complete life cycle as well.
And to measure and to follow up and continuously improve.
Yes. Cool.
Any other questions? I
I
think
think-
we're actually on point. 1:45. Then thanks a lot, everyone, for listening and for the really good questions. And if it's so that you have any more questions or thinking about, we didn't understand the concept, or I didn't understand what you were saying, please send us a message on LinkedIn. Goodbye.